All right, Justin. So for the Olympic lifting stuff, I want to just look over your snatches real quick from this past week. So just a couple things, and then I'll show you kind of what some differences or changes that I want you to try to make um, for next week. So first thing here that I see is I want to just kind of play with your setup position a little bit. So when you get loaded here, let's try to get this right where you're about to pull. So you can see you're kind of arched a little bit here. You get loaded a little bit better here in just a second. All right, so like here's your starting position. What I would love to see is, so this is very much like a deadlift setup position. For Olympic lifting, it's usually going to be better and get you set up in a better position if you can get your hips down and your chest up in your setup a little bit. So a little bit more of a squatting position rather than a hinge or deadlift position. So you'll create some tension on the bar. So think right here when you're about to pull, try to think about tilting back. So hips come down, chest comes up, and that's going to get you loaded a little bit better for your snatch pull for that first phase. And then what you want to think, instead of thinking about pulling the bar off the ground, you're going to think about pushing your legs into the ground. And what that's going to do, so you'll have a torso position that's a little bit deeper angle, and that's going to basically allow for you to keep that same torso angle until the bar gets past your knees. So that's what you're going to try to think about. So next week when we do these, we're still going to do the slow snatch pulls. So I'll give you a chance to kind of play with that and practice that a little bit. So I wrote here a note: in your setup position, try to get chest and eyes up a bit. Think more of a squat position rather than a hinge or deadlift position. And then imagine pushing through the ground rather than pulling off the ground. Okay? We can look at the video here. So notice that this athlete's chest is up a little bit more and the hips are down a little bit more. And you can see off this initial pull, quote, quote, pull from the ground, the torso angle doesn't really change much until the bar gets past the knees, and then that's when the hips open up. So slow, you're going to go slow, 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 pushing through the ground, and then once you get past the knees, that's when the speed should start. And that's when you open your hips up. Okay. And then we're going to switch it from a high hang. So you did high hangs last week, which were decent. Using a little hip pop, which is fine. Getting hips loaded and definitely using your hips there. I would have loved to see you get a little bit better extension and make it more of a jump rather than bouncing the bar off your hips. That's kind of a tendency, because then you can see on this high hang, since you kind of perform this as a little bounce, the bar is moving out and away from you. You can see this separation starting. Since you bounced it off your hips, you kind of popped your hips out and away. That's where the bar is going to go when we really want this movement to be up and back. So on your low hang snatches next week, I want you to think about when you pull through your hip, think about elbows going high so that bar doesn't move out and away from you, but instead it's moving up and back. Okay, we'll kind of see what that's going to look like here. So you can see there, you're still going to give yourself a little hip pop, of course. A little bounce off the hips, essentially. But then, as after that bar hits the hips, it's more of a jump up. See how he's getting the full hip extension here? Elbows are going to pull up and back rather than letting the bar move out and away. So then that bar is right there to receive rather than it having to pull back to you. And you can see that a couple times on some of these lists from last week. When you go to catch in the hang after the hang snatch, you're kind of up on your toes a little bit because you're having to move forward to catch the bar. You're fighting a little bit there. That one was pretty good. Since this bar is moving out and away from you, you can see that you're moving forward slightly to receive it, and your heels are coming up off the ground a little bit. So on that low hang snatch for next week, try to think, we'll say like full hip extension, elbows back and up, bar back and up, not away. So there'll just be some things to work on. Okay? See how that goes, dude.